Welcome to the thrilling world of high-octane racing dynamics and strategic maneuvers.
A 5-second or 10-second penalty will cost you all the more.
Yeah, if you've got a time penalty, a safety car just destroys your race because, you know, 5 seconds when the whole field is together could drop you back 10, 15 places, whereas at least if you're near the front of the race and the race is spread out, you may only lose a couple of positions.
Right, and just hearing news, if you're sitting somewhere warm, wherever you are in the world, watching the Super Trofeo World Finals, enjoy the fact you're warm because the coach is in the pits. He said it's very cold and the wind is really notably picking up. That could have a factor. And of course, Jack, when you're driving a car, even a car as powerful as this, if you've got wind behind you, it can make, well, and into your face, but, you know, whichever way you have it, it can have an effect.
Yeah, the wind direction makes a massive difference. Admittedly, more so in single-seaters where you're really relying on aerodynamics. For example, at somewhere like Silverstone, where it's always windy, depending on the wind direction into a corner like Cops can be whether the corner's flat out or a lift or even a brake. So it does make a big difference. Not so much in a GT car, but, you know, if you're leading the race and there's a headwind, you know, the slipstream then becomes more important. I've certainly found that racing my bike this year, you really, when you're pedaling yourself, you feel wind direction hugely. So although you can't feel it from inside the car, it will have an effect on how the race unfolds.
Yeah, in cycle racing, you always think it's incline that's the biggest problem. It's wind. And if you're somewhere, let's say, training in North Wales, it's both.
Exactly.
Right, looking at number 61, this is Massimo Cilia. Hasn't got any answers for Paolo Bilieri, so that is all very good news for the driver leading by an ever-increasing margin. 5.6 seconds clear is race leader Stefan Lemeray. And, oh dear, for DL Racing, it's just not looking so good for them. That, I think, is car number 41. Yeah, it is. Open the door. Christian Bortolato. Can't see anything untoward. He seems to have air in the 4 tyres that can be seen, but he's off. But the big question is, where is he off, and is that going to cause any problems for anyone else? Right, race leader coming through, Stefan Lemeray, over the start-finish line, and only then is the car in second place, Paolo Bilieri, coming round turn 16, so I'd suggest his lead. It's gone out a little bit more, 6 seconds. Pit stop window is going to be opening in 15 seconds time, so next time around they can dive in. But if you were driving Jack Stefan Lemeray's car, you've got Rodrigue Gillian coming on, so you want to hand over to him, but you'll stay out as long as you can. Clear track in front of you, make the most of it. Yeah,
I think, you know, Stefan Lemeray's clearly shown he's got good pace, he's consistent, he's built up a nice lead. That driver is in a rhythm. Once you find a rhythm, once you've got clear track, you really want to just stick with it, because we know later in the race there probably will be back markers getting in the way. Once we do the pit stop, you're obviously then pushed back into the field, so if you stop early you can actually end up in traffic. So all the while he's got a clear run out front, I'd be staying out and just leave him to do his thing.
Yeah, and in fact also in terms of he's just going onto the back straight now out of turn 10. The next car he might catch is turning into turn 16, so he's not going to catch any of them before the pit stop, so that is fantastic news for him. But this is the moment it all gets busy. Pit window has just opened, gaggle of cars coming in. Still only the one penalty so far, time penalty, 5 seconds extra for Holger Harmsen. He's still running third in the Lamborghini Cup class, just right behind Rocky Balduk, but I'm afraid the 5-second penalty would lose him 1 if not 2 positions. John Hirschberg, Ray Shahi, you know, 2 positions. Ray Shahi will go past as well, and maybe possibly even Adalberto Batista.
Yeah, certainly been a challenging weekend for Rocky Balduk, but I'm sure he'll go away feeling he's learnt a lot. There's a lot to digest and work on with his coach, and I'm sure he'll be back next year ready to fight for the, you know, front honours in LC.
Yeah, more known knowns when he comes back next time around. We don't yet know where next year's World Finals are. We've been putting our suggestions in the suggestions box, which they haven't put out for us. But right, this is the Privitello family car, run by Villorba, of course, the same team that's running the Lamborghini Cup class leader, Karim Oj. Donovan will take over, that son of Luciano, and always, you know, having fewer years on the clock, and Donovan has qualified really well for yesterday's first Lamborghini Cup and Am World Final race. He qualified right at the sharp end of the grid, but he was always going to be put in to give him was ASAP to get as much time in the car as he possibly could have.
Yeah, I'm sure his son's on the radio going, "Dad, come on, hurry up, get in, I want to go.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to move us up the grid now."
And then his father will say, "And who pays for this?"
Exactly.
It ain't Christmas yet.
I noticed that Massimo Cilia came in early. Again, smart move. I probably would have played that tactic if I was driving or in the team. Seems like he wasn't being really held up by Paolo Biglieri, but he was, you know, sat sort of half a second off the rear wing. So, you know, you then can have the potential to start eating up your front tyres. So get Pietro Perellini in the car, hope for some clear track, put in some good laps, and you know they might be able to, especially with the extra time that Paolo has to carry in the pits for being a solo driver, he may be able to then jump them into the second stint, and then Pietro can go chasing after the car 27.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of things to think out, but Stefan Lebre continuing as long as he possibly can and get in before the pit window. We have seen people miss it, just go one lap too many before trying to come in, and 2 corners short, but by the time they got to pit in, the imaginary pit window had been stand. So that's Pier Giacomo Randazzo. He handed it, well, he's happy with positions. That's possibly his racing season over now, but I'm sure he'll be back. He absolutely adores the Super Trofeo, and he's put Stefan Tribudini in. We saw the pit stop change. We heard from Stefan. They just wanted to atone for yesterday's non-result. Not their fault, a mechanical problem, which is so unusual in Super Trofeo. We talked about the performance of these cars, about the horsepower, the desirability of the Lamborghini name. They're also really well engineered. So the last thing you want when you're spending time and money racing is to have something that's mechanically frail, but these seem to be really robust.
Yeah, obviously you look at them and there's all the intricate shapes and design that you if you actually look at one up closely, you think, oh god, if I touch that looks like it's going to fall off. But they, you know, they are built, you know, super strong. They are really robust, and you can go door-to-door racing, and you know you might lose a little bit of carbon fibre, you might lose a mirror, but they are racing machines ready to be treated, you know, as such.
Now, one thing when you look at them, almost everywhere they work, everywhere they race, it's about getting airflow to that mighty engine at the back. But I'm just hearing from Dakota, the American teams have decided it's so cold, almost all of them are taped over the front radiators. It's a really unusual. It's not a great look, but if it's effective and just keeps your engine in the sweet spot, you've got to do it. So the other teams will be going, where do we put the tape?
Yeah, exactly. The cold air is really good for the engines. Oh, we're just going to replay it.
I think it's just a wonderful
a nice
drift.
slow-mo.
It's always good to see a sort of super slow-mo. You can see so much more of the dynamics of a car, because modern racing cars, they're very quick, but they don't move around a lot. I do quite a lot of historic racing, and there you can see absolutely the laws of physics being applied, and they're much softer suspension on narrower tyres. So it's really great when you get a super slow-mo.
Yeah, these cars are super stiff and low to the ground, so you don't actually, on a normal speed, you know, replay and during the race, you don't actually see that much movement.
Severin Mazur, he was running in 5th place, just latest one to come diving into the pits. Going through a little procedure there, trying to get a bit of a glug when going out. It's not a hot day, but you're still going to be becoming really quite dehydrated on board.
Yeah, staying hydrated is so important, you know, during any race. If you get dehydrated, you start to, you can almost start to hallucinate if you get dehydrated enough. So hydration, you know, preparation in fitness and all of that side of things is so important, even in a 50-minute race.
Look, in the past 20 years or so, everybody's got the message that you might think you're a good driver, but if you're not fully fit, you're going to be performing way below your potential. And that has been one of the biggest changes, particularly in a championship like this, where people aren't full-time athletes, they aren't full-time racing drivers in the Lamborghini Cup and AM class, but they do need to give it their best, and they can only do that as a pair of cars really having good tussle if you are at least fitter than you were the previous year. And the older you are, the harder it is to keep there. But, you know, get that core fitness, just keep it ticking over, and it really does pay dividends. Yeah,
if you can just keep that heart rate down, even 5-10 beats a minute, a minute, sorry, you know, you just got that extra bit of time to focus. You know, Michael Schumacher was absolutely mad about his fitness, and he was maybe the first driver who was, and it, you know, showed in his results.
Well, in fact, interestingly to me, I talked to the great stylish British Formula 1 driver Tony Brooks. When he was racing Formula 1 in the 1950s into the 60s, he said he and Sterling Moss used to play badminton, and that was considered, you know, but he said it was really good for their nimbleness and stuff. And he said other drivers maybe spent a bit more time in the bar. It was a different thing then. It wasn't something considered, but people like him had the antennae to realise, let's do something to make it easier. Let's do something to be at my best. Right, Not everybody served their pit stop. Stefan Lemaire has not. He's leading this race. His margin 8.9 seconds. Pit window closes in just under 3 minutes, so the team's going to be having to do the maths. And he can do another lap after this one. He's just coming through turn 15 on this 16-turn circuit. There he goes, out over the curbing a little bit, and then on to the start-finish straight.
Stay informed. Follow the adrenaline of racing excellence.